Well, an era of football, I think Cowboys fans are probably tired of seeing already, even if it's been 5 games, which is the Mike McCarthy play calling era. Because so far, there have been mixed results, Reg, when it comes to the Texas West Coast offense, if you will, and the quick passing game that Mike McCarthy has incorporated for his quarterback. After, of course, last year, despite missing 5 games, Dak Prescott threw 15 interceptions. So the question is Mike McCarthy's offense actually hindering one reign Dakota Prescott?
I don't really want to take it from the perspective of Dak Prescott himself. I want to take it just from the offense as a whole, because again, Dak Prescott ends up being entirely polarizing, and I don't really want to focus there. This is way more about McCarthy than it is about Dak Prescott. And as evidence that I'm not just descending on this because of Dak Prescott, KG, you are my witness. Before the season started, I called you at one point and I asked, why are we so certain about this Mike McCarthy offensive play caller thing? Because wasn't him getting out of Green Bay partially because the offense had become, less effective and more predictable?
That and his relationship with Aaron Rodgers had deteriorated to a point where the two couldn't coexist anymore.
And those are also because of offensive issues. And so, that was the thing. But I was like, look, man, I'm willing. It's early in the season. Ain't nobody trying to hear all that to begin with, right? And let's be honest. In the optimism portion of gearing up to a season, really and truly, ain't nobody trying to hear that, right? Okay, cool. But as we've gone, you look up and there have been offensive issues. You've had opportunities for defense to show up and be really evident. And that is kind of, I don't want to say hidden, but it is, kind of de-emphasized some of the negatives. And we've talked a lot about the red zone woes, and that's been one way that this shown up. But when it comes down to it, we've seen issues with the ways that this offense works and the basic design of it. And look, you could say, Reggie, you know what the hell you're talking about, right? We can talk about the fact of the matter that the average depth of target has dropped dramatically for Dak Prescott. Anecdotally, I talked about the idea of it doesn't feel like they could get the chunk plays. You remember that conversation, KG?
Mm-hmm.
All right, man. Y'all don't have to listen to me. Who am I? How about dude who played in the Super Bowl? Dude who's been a very good quarterback in the NFL.
Former NFL MVP.
Dude has been an MVP. Dude who still works breaking down offenses in football. His name is Kurt Warner. And I take you to cut number 20 here, Chris. As Kurt Warner was breaking down one of the plays. Now, of course, this is not going to be indicative of everything, but he's breaking down one of the plays that happened in this game. It was not one of the interceptions, but the concept that they're trying to run is double slants. And he's breaking down why this particular play was not effective for the Cowboys.
As you watch this play, what I want you to notice is that both receivers run their routes at the same depth. What we're trying to do is see movement. But if both of these guys are running their routes at the same depth, it's impossible to be on time to the outside throw unless you're just guessing ahead of time, because you can't get a read off of the inside linebacker unless this guy makes him do something. And so if he's going to push up 5 yards and he's going to push up 5 yards, and you've got to throw it as this guy's breaking out of his 5-yard slant, how do you get a read off of this guy until this guy breaks? So one of the details that I've always run with double slant is I run this guy on a 1-step slant. 1-step slant, 3-step slant. 1 step so I can get a read. I can get an idea of what this guy's doing. So if he does push through on the 1 step, I can react back to the inside. Otherwise, I have no chance. So we get that read, and then this guy comes out of his break later than the other guy.
Obviously, it's a visual medium, and that comes from Kurt Warner's Quarterback Confidential YouTube page. But you can hear the idea of, we talked about play purpose. Oh my goodness. The idea that, the play has a purpose. If the purpose that you intend is the play is not designed to actually give you that, the idea is that, all right, the plays are now going to make it easier for your quarterback, who people have concerns about, then make it easier for him. What happens if what you're doing is actually not making it easy for him, is giving him a lose-lose situation in a circumstance? how's your offense supposed to win in that instance? And of course, this is one indication of this, but like there's a lot of instances where you can look at teams being able to see what's happening, or simply just there not being an actual, worthwhile option in passing. And of course, this shows up against the Niners, which are a very good team, but it also kind of shows up against the Cardinals, which, how do you feel about them, right? Like, are you willing to say that that's very good defense, maybe, right? That's my frustration. And I can see that as like not a super trained football eye, although I had the opportunity of looking at all 22 so you can actually see what's happening here. But no, man, if there's lose-lose situation for the quarterback, of course you're going to look up and say the quarterback stinks because there's not an opportunity there.
And that's one of the things that, so far in Mike McCarthy's offense has been lamented, is the lack of separation that these receivers have, had so far against opposing coverage. And not only that, you saw that play itself out against San Francisco, and Kurt Warner talking about, the depth of what's the route is being run, receivers being in the same area. Dak Prescott doesn't have the ability to manipulate defenses because guys are either running in the same area, running similar routes. It doesn't, allow defenses to try to make decisions that could create an advantage for the quarterback to be able to take advantage of. He's also not going through the kinds of progressions that at times you would feel like a quarterback of his skill level and experience will be able to do.
Sure.
So much to the point that it can create, from Mike McCarthy's standpoint, some predictability.
Well, before we get to the point of predictability, when you talk about progressions, that's one thing that the West Coast offense has more of, is true progressions. One of the things I find interesting is there's a lot of time where we look at a cut of film, and we go, this person is open, and we do not know necessarily what the assignments are, what the design of the play is, what you're looking for. In true progressions, you should be able to see that a little bit clearer. And then also what that means is that Dak Prescott, and this is the part that's supposed to make it easier, you know exactly where you're supposed to go in any given chance. If there's instances where that is not the progression and there's a wide open receiver, that's also an issue.
Yeah.
Right? If the progression is meant to be in certain places, but on the backside of that play, you have open receivers. Well, maybe that receiver's open because the defense obviously is gearing towards where you're supposed to go, which then also probably speaks to your predictability.
Which takes me to cut number 30. Fred Warner on the Warner House podcast details. So obviously one of the big plays of the game was Fred Warner sacking, Dak Prescott deep in, Cowboys' own territory. Now, this is after the Cowboys had gotten the turnover. Jordan Lewis is able to strip the football from Christian McCaffrey.
Huge play, first of all, going and making a tackle.
Yes.
And then also ripping the ball out. Like, Jordan Lewis deserves a little bit of credit for that play.
Yeah, and on the ensuing possession, the Cowboys take over offensively. Listen to how Fred Warner details exactly how that play broke down and what he recognized in order to sack Dak Prescott.
They try to motion CD to kind of see, all right, is a man zone read. I knew that they love slants and they love crossing routes to try to, when we're in man coverage, if they want our guys to run into each other as their guys are kind of crossing to knock them off. And so I'm popping and I'm kind of looking in my peripheral to see if they're crossing. I see CD coming across and the tight end. So I literally just had to try to jump in front of both of them to knock them off just to make sure that they didn't rub the guys that were covering. So boom, when I knock them off, that knocks their timing off of the play. Dak has to pump it. Oh, he escapes out. And then it's just perfect little lane for me to just run up and right in through there and woo! Sackaroonie.
First of all, Sackaroonie is lame as hell, but whatever.
Hey, man. When you do what you want when you're popping, and right now Fred Warner is popping his hell, brother.
But more importantly, if you listen to him, he is detailing exactly the tendencies that this Mike McCarthy offense is running, so much to the point that he's able to be 4 players in one. First of all, it's a credit to Fred Warner and his unbelievable ability, for one.
He's so good.
But the idea being, he knows conceptually what the Cowboys want to do, how to do it, and predicted how he would need to make a play and stop the entire play, with the route concept and everything else that was happening in order to force Dak Prescott to hold the football and ultimately make the sack. Now, Dak Prescott's got to get rid of the football. He's got to throw it away.
Yeah, that.
Period.
Yep.
That's number one.
Yep.
But again, This goes to some of the things that I do not like about this offense is that there appears to be no innovation, no creativity, and I go back to the separation when it comes to receivers. Your receivers are not winning enough off of the line of scrimmage to depend on them to win their individual matchups, that you don't necessarily scheme them open the way, oh, that's right, how Kyle Shanahan does. If you're going to run this offense, a lot of it is going to depend on your playmakers to be able to win their individual matchups. And here's what bothered me most about San Francisco and what they did to Dallas and their receivers. They had no respect for CeeDee Lamb, for Michael Gallup, and hell, even at times Brandon Cooks, for their ability to win their matchup. And they said, we're going to get up on the line, play press man coverage, and we dare you to beat us because we don't believe that you can. Even with Jimmy Ward, DeMondre Lenore, we don't believe that your receivers are good enough to beat us one-on-one. And guess what? They weren't on Sunday night. And that to me is a problem going forward. If you're not going to win your matchups, it's upon your coach now to scheme and find creativity to create mismatches and advantages to get these dudes, as you like to say, butt naked, wide open.
Yeah.
Because that's what Kyle Shanahan does every single time, even with the skill guys of Ayuk, Samuel, Kittle, and all the guys alike.
Can I frame this not against Kyle Shanahan? I would like to frame it against your opponent on
Period,
Monday.
yeah.
Right? Because this is the thing. When it comes to Mike McCarthy as a head coach, we couldn't really judge him. Like, it was hard to judge him because, like, hey, he's a walk-around head coach. But then when that's the case, you look up 12 wins. 12 wins, right? Those are really good winning seasons. And you look up and you go, that is an attribute of the head coach. But now you hire yourself as the play caller offensively. Now you have to be compared in that play calling role. And Kellen Moore had very good offenses statistically. The problem with Kellen Moore was situational, right? And though it definitely showed up in instances and it ended up being an issue. However, now you have bigger issues that are simply, the basis of the offense. You can't even get to situational football because you don't have enough football in you offensively right now. And that is a very clear step down in offense. And not even just like the reeled back step down. This is a, ability step down. And that might be the smoking gun on Mike McCarthy. He might have been his own undoing in this way.
Yeah.
And of course, we're 5 weeks in, right? Maybe there's some level of figuring it out. But if it does not include more emotion, which is funny because, hey, what happened on the one touchdown that they had?
They got Kevontae Turpin basically a running start in motion.
Well, what's funny is he didn't even get a running start, but he got outside leverage.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
he was in motion.
He motioned,
moving.
He stopped, but he had outside leverage which allowed him to use his speed, right? There's reasons why these things are utilized in modern football. Mike McCarthy is not utilizing those enough. He's predictable, and he's not helping the offense be better. And like I said, it's kind of crazy that as a head coach, him wanting to call plays might ultimately be his smoking gun.
And you know what? It was funny because last thing on this, Brian Schottenheimer, the offensive coordinator, detailed some of this. He's like, we were surprised at how much man coverage that San Francisco played against us on Sunday night. This is a team that traditionally plays more zone coverage, but they got up on these receivers and they played man coverage on them, and they dared them to beat them. And again, they couldn't do it. So even to the surprise of their own offensive coordinator, San Francisco played a much more physical brand of football that didn't allow these receivers to get the kind of separation that they need to even have open throwing lanes for Dak Prescott. Oh boy. Cowboys offense frustrating so far.
And boy, it's going to look real frustrating if you don't do it on Monday.
Woo-hoo.